Well, broadcasters have applied to the courts to amend the order issued in relation to the broadcasting restrictions in the Zandile Gumede fraud and corruption case. The matter relates to a 320 million rand Durban solid waste tender that the former eThekwini mayor has been linked to. Now, the restriction relates to the strict conditions relating to how journalists are covering the trial, this including having to leave cell phones outside the court. So let's get the latest now from senior reporter Dasen Thathiah, who joins me for the very latest. Dasen, a very warm good morning to you, colleague. And understandably, broadcasters would not be too happy about this because it seems like it might obviously, be more challenging in terms of covering the Zandile Gumede trial. Take me through some of the restrictions that had been tabled in this order.
Well, Tumelo, I can tell you that just having personally covered the trial since it started, it's been one challenge after another just to purely bring what's happening in that courtroom to our viewers. It's really just been a struggle to even get any visuals out of the courtroom. At some point, we were then asked to leave our cell phones outside the court before going in, which essentially meant that we couldn't do things like live tweeting, for example, all of which is really necessary to bring the story to our viewers. And I've always maintained, and our channel has also maintained, that this is an extremely important case. We're talking about public funds here, 320 million rand. There are many people, many parties that are interested in knowing exactly how that case unfolds. So essentially, we've been limited up until this point to presenting summaries effectively after the court proceedings and packaging that into small inserts, but without actually being able to bring that live coverage to our viewers who are really interested in knowing what's been going on. So on the back of that and within that context, there was also an application that was then brought by the broadcasters, it's eNCA, Newsroom Africa and SABC, to challenge that. And today was the day that was finally heard in this courtroom. I'm now joined by Dan Rosengarten of Rosengarten and Feinberg, who is the media representative in this court. Dan, thanks so much for joining me. I think perhaps let's firstly talk about what was wrong in the way this matter was handled, which led us to bringing this application.
Well, Dasen, there's a long history. Initially, when this trial started last year, there was a court order which didn't involve it involved the media, but the media weren't consulted about it or they weren't heard about it, in essence excluding them. We then fought the matter for the broadcast media, the 3 television channels, successfully, and television cameras, in terms of a court order, were allowed back into court. We then had an unfortunate incident with one of the witnesses' house having been shot at. Whether that was even related to the evidence being given is unknown. It's pure conjecture. As a result of that, an order was made in chambers by agreement between representatives of the accused and the prosecutor through the state attorney, which in essence didn't exclude media entirely. It allowed them in, but it didn't allow any of the evidence to be broadcast until well after the trial. It didn't allow any live broadcast. It didn't allow witnesses to be named. So it didn't allow cell phones or laptops. So in essence, it was a gagging order. And as there had already been an order in favor of the media, we said, well, you can only do that after hearing that. Case law's on our side. And so we brought this application for a right to be heard and present our case so that we can be here going forward.
Dan, we heard a lot about the principle of open justice in court when proceedings got underway this morning. In fact, Judge Charmaine Bolton was at pains to stress that there was only 30 minutes really to deal with this matter earlier on. But perhaps unpack that for us, that principle, and how important it is to this case and the arguments that were presented.
Dasen, you know that justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done, and I think that's at the real basis of the open justice system. It firstly allows people who are interested in a matter to be present, but because of the limitations of size of a courtroom, the fact that many people are sitting in Johannesburg and they have an interest in the trial, the open justice system says, let's extend this, not only to those few who can sit in the courtroom. And in a matter such as this, there are so many accused and their families, there's no scope for any member of the public attending it. And the open justice system basically extends justice so that anyone can see it.
And I think lastly, where are we now? So the matter has been adjourned, as we heard earlier this morning. It sounds like it was for time constraints because the trial needed to continue. But where are we at this point? When will we see some finalization of this matter?
Dasen, of course, I can't go into what happened in chambers after Max du Plessis, who's arguing the matter for us, presented his argument. We were originally, as you mentioned, given a very short time, only half an hour, to have the whole matter heard. But I think that everyone in court saw how important the matter was, and so Max was allowed to complete his argument. Then, by reason of time and the next, unfortunately, they wanted to reconvene the trial, and it is unfortunate. The judge said, well, the matter must be part heard, they must come back and hear from the state and hear our replying evidence in due course. That is never an ideal situation. So currently dates are being negotiated or discussed between the relevant parties, and in the interim, I think it's always better to try and sort something out which makes everyone happy. Without disclosing anything, one is going to start looking at that, which will allow, subject to certain restrictions, media back into court, subject to following proper procedure in relation to a witness-by-witness approach.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dasen.
Dan Rosengarten there, speaking on behalf of the media houses that they are representing here. So this matter remains part heard for now, but in the interim, the trial that we're here for, that's the Zandile Gumede corruption trial, that is expected to resume in this court. And we will wait to hear when the media application matter will actually return, and hopefully there will be some finalization. But what it effectively means for now is that the status quo remains, and for now at least, we still won't be allowed to take our devices into the courtroom, which once again limits our publishing or reporting on this matter.
Absolutely, understandably, given that, of course, with technology, Dasen, you mentioned a good example of, live tweeting those events inside court. That definitely would be affected, but we'll be sure to come back to you as soon as there are any other updates regarding this matter. Broadcasters, of course, filing, against that order to prohibit them from, of course, walking inside the courtroom with their devices during the Zandile Gumede trial. That's Dasen Thathiah for us. Thank you so much, colleague, for this update.